This is Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast, episode number 216. Today, our special guests are Cory McMann and Kelly Martin. Cory and Kelly are both healthcare leaders, walking polarities, and twin sisters. You won't want to miss this fun episode of healthcare leaders that are all polarity minded. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. This is the only podcast that shows you how to leverage polarity intelligence, an essential competency for healthcare leaders, and the missing logic in healthcare, so you can create healthy, healing organizations and become a thriving, resilient, and unstoppable healthcare leader.
We are your hosts, Tracy Christofferson and Michelle Trosett. We've been best friends and colleagues for over 30 years. And during that time, we coached healthcare leaders across North America around how to create healthy, healing organizations.
Today, we coach healthcare leaders and leadership teams to live thriving, resilient, and balanced lives, combat burnout, and create the best places to give and receive care.
This podcast is for the unsung hero of healthcare, the healthcare leader. We want you to know we see you and we'll be here for you each week. In this podcast, we're going to challenge healthcare's industry norms, flip limiting beliefs, and share proven strategies so you can be your best self at work and at home, live and lead intentionally, and experience well-being and joy.
We are glad you are here and look forward to sharing the journey with you. If you aren't totally convinced this podcast is for you, just listen to a few episodes and convince yourself. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. This is co-host Michelle Trosett along with
Dr. Tracy Christofferson.
Yep, here we are.
Here at the control panels, taking care of the world. You didn't know that, but we are.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Just having another fabulous day. Today, we're in northern Michigan, enjoying some sunshine.
Yeah, we're recording out of Tracy's place.
Yeah,
today.
We switched things up today. We're in my place. You'll see that when you watch the YouTube version of this. A little bit different. Yeah, it's fun.
Oh, so we had an interview today that we actually have been wanting to do for quite a while, and it actually happened.
Yes, these are two amazing twin sisters that found us by chance. And it's changed their lives. It has. And they'll tell you that.
We'll let them tell the story.
That's not just my perspective.
No, we'll let them tell the story.
But it is kind of fun because I have actually gotten to be with them. I got to have dinner with them a couple times. It's just been really fun. So if any of you out there listening would like to get to know us better, have dinner.
Let us know where you live and if we're traveling.
Yeah, hey, we'll stop in.
We will.
Yeah, we don't mind. Yeah. Well, they're great leaders, and we've learned a lot about how incredible they are and how influential they are in their organizations.
Very much so. And they're on a journey, and they both are leaders at Intermountain Health in Utah, that's where Tracy's son lives, hence the get-togethers.
Yeah.
And they're going to share their personal experiences having been introduced to polarity intelligence through our podcast, doing more learning on their own. And you're going to hear how much this has changed their life. But they also wanted all the listeners to know that they are representing themselves and their personal experience and not officially representing Intermountain Health. And they have unique roles at Intermountain Health, unique roles as friends and twin sisters. So we can't wait for you to hear this episode.
Yeah, it's really great. So I'll kick it off. I'll introduce you to Cory McMann. Cory serves as the Assistant Vice President of Leadership Development for Intermountain Health, and that's a 33 hospital integrated healthcare system stretching across 7 states in the Intermountain West. In her current role, Cory leads programs and initiatives to strengthen leadership talent across her organization. She's a certified PAC practitioner from Polarity Partnerships, and Cory leverages Polarity thinking to coach teams to supplement problem solving with a both and approach to achieve sustainable results over time. Cory also serves her organization as an internal coach and is earning her associate certified coach credential through the International Coaching Federation. In her past roles as a clinical leader, Cory managed acute and ambulatory clinical operations and led initiatives to improve treatment times for acute ischemic stroke across the healthcare enterprise, improve stroke mortality, reduce spine surgeries, supply costs, and create a consumer centric care model for spine care. She's very, very involved in that. She's also a native Utahn.
Utah.
Utahn. And she lives into her core values of balance by taking advantage of the amazing outdoor activity opportunities in that state. So outside of work, she enjoys golfing, running, mountain biking, stand-up paddleboarding, hiking with her dogs, and skiing powder at Alta Ski Area with her husband of 21 years.
All right, let's meet her twin sister.
Yeah.
Her twin sister is Kelly Martin, and her pronouns are she, her. She is a current leader at Intermountain Health, where she's a director of hospital care management over five hospitals in the greater Salt Lake City area. A registered nurse since 2005, her background includes diverse clinical, care management, and leadership experience, including hospital acute care, women's health, home health, health plans, and population health. She holds a master's in healthcare administration from the University of Utah David Eccles School of Business, where she earned recognition as Outstanding Graduate. Go Kelly for the professional MHA program. She earned her bachelor's degree from the University of Utah and obtained her nursing education from Shoreline Community College in Seattle, Washington. She also holds case management certification from the Commission of Case Management Certification. Kelly enjoys volunteering in the recovery community and mentoring current and future leaders in healthcare. Her hobbies include camping, hiking, skiing, mountain biking, singing, and songwriting, and spending time with her family. 2 canines, her husband, and 2 children. You can find her every morning walking her dogs and listening to the Missing Logic podcast or other audiobooks that fill her cup as a lifelong learner. So without further ado, here is our interview with Cory and Kelly.
Well, welcome, Cory and Kelly. We are so excited to have you on the show today.
Yes, we are.
And we're so excited to be here.
So excited.
Yeah, another dynamic duo. We got brought together over the airwaves.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's like kindred spirits.
Oh, yes.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? Well, it is. And we've been looking forward to this day for a very, very long time. So welcome. And let's get started with you just sharing a little bit with our listeners, really about how you got introduced to Polarity Intelligence, kind of where your journey started, and with this new leadership competency. So, Cory, why don't you go first?
Oh, I love telling this story. And actually, it came from Kelly because Kelly and I have this practice where every morning we get up. It kind of started in the pandemic, I guess. We started talking to each other between like 5:30 and 6:30 every morning, and we often share audiobooks or podcasts that we're listening because we're just both lifelong learners. And one morning she sent me a link, or it was a LinkedIn post that David Emerald had posted about being interviewed on this Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. And so, having followed David Emerald, I was really curious, and I tuned into the first Missing Logic podcast in February of 2022, so just over a year ago. And I was like, where have these women been in my whole life? So here's some people talking about complexities in healthcare and engaging with one of my an author that I'd already been transformed by, and so I just got really curious and started listening to the podcast kind of voraciously. I binged it for a couple of weeks and went all the way back to some of the originating episodes with Barry Johnson, and I thought, wow, this is really something I need to dig into and learn more about. So for me, that resulted in a trip to your website, and then engaging in the Caring for Self and Caring for Others self-study program, because I thought I want to learn how to incorporate this. They're talking about thriving, resilient, unstoppable leaders, um, and I was in a place coming out of the pandemic for 2 years where I wasn't exactly feeling thriving and resilient and unstoppable, and I wanted to be that. And so that kind of started my journey. And I can share more about that, but I want to turn it over to Kelly as well.
Yeah, great. Let's hear from you, Kelly.
Well, yeah. Well, again, I listened to the podcast. I saw the link from David Emerald's LinkedIn, and thought, well, I'm going to go take a listen to this, and everything around that dynamic tension to your dynamic balance was just really speaking my language. And plus, being from the Midwest, my family grew up there, and it was like sitting at the kitchen table with my aunts playing pinochle, listening to you laugh and giggle and have a good time, all while talking about things that are really challenging and difficult for us to get through as healthcare leaders. I was really coming out of, I was in a really interesting place because I was finishing my master's degree. It was a very rapid, one of those periods in my life that was just rapid cycle, lots of growth. I Right after I started my master's program, I grew into my first real leadership opportunity, and that beget a lot more opportunities that were it was just learning, growth, and I was really focused on me, which was new for me. And we might talk about that a little bit better, about where we sit in our preference polls around caring for self and caring for others. But I was really focused on me, and also seeing some of the some of the downsides when we over focus on ourselves, when you have a family and you have all these other things that you're trying to juggle and multiple plates to spin at the same time. So it was just really refreshing for me to hear a framework, and it was almost it's like a breath of fresh air, and gave me a lot of relief from a lot of the anxiety that I was feeling about trying to juggle so many things at once, and kind of coming at peace with it. Like, yeah, it's dynamic balance. It's not we're going to find one thing and stick to it forever. It's all about that, navigating those tensions every day.
Every day. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. And if you're watching on YouTube, we all started out with our polarity lens on, and mine were steaming up because this conversation is already getting so good and hot. So we can take them off and put our real glasses on. Well, what a great intro. And we're just thrilled that you really discovered us, through the podcast and through mutual acquaintance that we all really respect, David Emerald. So what a great story. And what we love about you both is how passionate you are about this and how committed you are to really, applying this competency to yourself, both personally and professionally. And we'd love for you to share with our listeners, just a few examples of how you have applied polarity intelligence professionally. And Kelly, let's start with you with some examples.
Sure. So I have about two good concrete examples where I really got out a map and worked with teams on a couple of things. And one of those, I was pretty early being introduced to you, and I was reading Barry Johnson's book and learning about mapping out these polarities. And we had just come through, I'd helped lead a team through a very rigorous NCQA accreditation on quality. So there was so much, lots of focus on quality and doing quality work, and they really rose above and did an amazing job. And then the other challenge with that was the productivity side. We needed to grow in our productivity, and there was a lot of tension there. We focused so much on the quality pole that we weren't. It was hard to help move people through what solutions might look like, so that we could impact more patients and see more people, and set more goals for more people to help them thrive as patients in our communities. And we mapped it out, and it was really a nice dialogue about what's are the upsides, and everyone, it was really easy for them to feel the upsides of quality, because we were really heavily focused on that. A little harder to dig into the upsides of productivity, because that felt really challenging. But as we talked through it and dialogued about it, they really created their own map and could
Mhm.
start to see a way through that. I ended up getting a promotion because I was getting at the tail end of my master's program. So I didn't get to see them through, but I did, because I still work with that team and was able to watch them grow, and they did. And it's been really incredible to watch. But that was a really fun way to use polarity mapping and dialogue. The second thing that we've really had to navigate, and I think it's really that new um, thing that we've all been really trying to balance with COVID, um, is in person and remote, and
Mhm.
finding a third way. And what does a hybrid team look like? We've done some work in my current team about doing that. We found, looking into the national research, so many people just leaving healthcare, and they're leaving healthcare altogether. The people who quit post during the pandemic and immediately post pandemic, McKinsey did some good work on and some surveys through that on that as well. And what can we do to help people? What do they want? And understanding what people want in their lives. And they want balance. They want to be able to come to work and love what they do. And they want to be able to go home. And they want to be able to make these things work together. So that's been another thing that's been really fun, is to work through bringing teams into more hybrid environments. It was also part of trying to help retain people that wanted to have more flexibility and figuring out how to use technology to get us there. And it's always dialogue; it's always moving, because you encounter, that when we're in hospitals in particular, everything's so personal, and that's how we demonstrate our care and that we're close to people. And so you're always working through some of those concerns about having people doing work that's remote. But when there's a lot of work, and my background is in case management, so you're talking with so many external stakeholders and people outside in the community to help orchestrate a safe discharge plan. Um, so a lot of work can be done remotely on a phone and using all of our glorious tools of technology. So I think those are probably the two most concrete examples where we have a map. I have a map. There's a polarity map in the project plan, and it's really exciting for me when people see that and they light up. And I've had some experiences like that where this is so great. This makes so much sense to me. I couldn't see it. It's like being able to see you feel these tensions, and to be able to put it in a box and see it has been really powerful for some people that have been exposed to it.
Those are great examples. And they've always been here, they'll always be here in the future. And I love how you just brought it forward in a real situation we all went through. And then we'll hopefully be able to hold on some of those action plans as we, move on, as healthcare
Yeah.
continues to change too, or change them as we need to. So thanks.
Yeah, it's great.
Cory, how about you? What are some professional examples you've encountered or
Well,
have
oh,
with?
well, every day it's always running around in my head. I listen to conversations and I'm like, oh, that's one perspective. There's another perspective that's missing. And and when you see those passions of people kind of afraid of losing something that they value, and it always strikes in me, I'm asking those internal questions. But where I first used this was in the in-person remote polarity, just because I had a team that had, before the pandemic, had not been intended to be a remote team or even hybrid. They went to the facilities every day to do their work. And that even meant long commutes for some people. And, um, the pandemic was a challenging but quick shift that everybody took. And then 2 years later, as things were starting to open up in the hospitals and we had caregivers coming back to work, I was concerned that we might start seeing some challenges, just because of the different perspectives. You have clinicians that my team was supporting, but and they don't have a choice, they have to show up every day. And so really wanting to walk through with them what was valuable in both work contexts. And so that was my first opportunity to facilitate a team through the remote and in-person polarity. And people came up with their uh, their early warning signs, and they knew exactly. And it was really clear what everyone's preference poll was at this point in 2 years in the pandemic. And um, so it's fun because it's a little harder to think about the the downsides of the poll that is preferred, but then engaging in a safe conversation and dialogue and people sharing, but when I go into the facility and I'm in person, it's actually a little bit easier for me to build the relationships with people one on one when they see me showing up there with them in the work. Um, and when I'm at home, I'm so productive. If I'm doing data stuff and I have to be like, super focused, I don't have all these distractions. So it really enabled them each to identify what's my personal action plan that's going to help me leverage this polarity really well to achieve my greater purpose, which was, exceptional care and the processes there over the quality of the processes. And it meant that people could have some individual choice in how they architect, as being architects of their own workflows. And when do I come in person? Um, when do I do virtual work? And they each could identify their own early warning signs. So it would be different. They're all in different facilities. So they
Mhm.
could identify different early warning signs were going to look different, but then share that with each other and learn from it. So that was just to tag on to what Kelly was talking about, and it's still highly relevant today. Today I'm in a pretty much 100% remote team, which is a change for me too. So I'm like, today I actually went into one of our facilities where I have a touchdown space just to see some people, so I have to think about my early warning signs every day as well. And then another, just a really solid business example, I think, is internal sourcing and external sourcing. It's really
Mm.
easy for us to say, oh, we should just outsource and, get a vendor to provide this service. And then you have people say, no, but we have so much knowledge. We should focus on
Yeah.
internal sourcing. And I had the opportunity to walk through one of my teams in the telehealth space around, trying to create more, using a polarity map to envision how we could move forward with some real labor challenges, honestly. But it
Yeah.
was a really
Mhm.
great example to engage the work of polarity intelligence there. So it's fun. It's
Mhm.
always in my head, but whenever I see the opportunity to bring it forward with a group at work, it always brings really great insights for people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I noticed both of you mentioned is dialogue.
Mm,
Yeah.
And I think, we often think
Mm.
about just identifying the polarities, right? And I love that it's like in the forefront of your mind, right? And you're looking for them all the time. Like you're able to just see them because you know what they are and you can recognize them. But it's another thing to engage in the conversation about them because we're talking about perspectives that can be contradictory to each other or opposing to each other. And you can't engage in meaningful in meaningful application of leveraging polarities if you don't have healthy relationships as a foundation and be able to engage in that dialogue. And I don't know if there's anything more you wanted to say about dialogue and how that supported you.
Well, that's exactly it. And having mapped it out, then we could engage in the dialogue when we were seeing the early warning signs. So, for example, it's not a one and done. It's not like, oh, we mapped it and now we're done. It just gives you a framework to come back to when you start seeing um, that you might be over focusing on one to the neglect of the other. And sometimes people don't even see that there's another perspective. And so to
Right.
have a tool to bring that out and engage safely in dialogue has been really valuable.
Yeah. Kelly, anything you want to add?
No, I think Cory put it really well. And the thing I can say too is I come at it too. I come at things with my own preference poll, and that's been learning for me too, to be able to step away and do some perspective taking. I come in and think I'm right. I've got it figured out. I've looked at it all, and I'm not. I don't know. And it's about sitting down and listening and taking those perspectives. And I'm growing and learning right along with everybody else.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so are we.
Yeah.
And that you don't get there. Okay. You're always growing and learning. And I think it's just a great segue into preference polls, right? And you can have an accurate perspective, but it can also be incomplete, right?
Mhm.
If there is an interdependent perspective that, is coupled with the one that you have. And so we know that sometimes you each hold a different preference poll, just like Michelle and I were walking polarity, like the two of you. And it can be really, really challenging, right? And it's not that you don't value the other perspective. It's just that you tend to act, behave, and come from the perspective that you value more, right?
Mhm.
Or that you have a preference for. And so how does this show up for you guys sometimes in your life as sisters, friends, work colleagues? And Cory, why don't you go first and share a little bit about that?
Well, I think the ultimate polarity where this shows up for Kelly and I, Kelly, tell me if you disagree, is caring for self and caring for others. I definitely have a preference pull for caring for self. And, I really developed that early in nursing school because I recognized how much it was going to take to give in that context. I knew I wanted to be an ICU nurse. And somehow early on, I said, I have got to take care of me. And so I really, doubled down on that. I think early on, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go, to the chapel and meditate on my shift and take 20 minutes away from the unit. I am going to go eat lunch. Yes, I know everybody else is eating lunch out in the unit in front of the monitors. I think that they're going to be okay for 20 minutes so I can step away. And I think that just embedded itself in my life in a lot of different ways. And so, and how this shows up with Kelly and me sometimes is when we do activities together. So, like skiing, for example, I go skiing and I'm like, this is my self care. This is my time. And so I'm like, I get out there and I know the resort, and Kelly's a great skier too. I'm not saying you're not a great skier, Kelly, but I'll be
Let
out
me
in
preface
front. I'm
it.
like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, and then she'll catch up to me, and I'm like, okay, let's go. And so if I can focus on others, maybe I would stop and like let her catch her breath too. But I'm kind of self focused in that moment and ready to get the powder run. So I'm like, let's go. And so and I'm just in awe when I watch Kelly and how giving she is to others. And I'm really fortunate to have a model so that when I'm over focused on self, I can actually look to Kelly as a mentor and how can I be more others focused.
How about you, Kelly?
Well, and I think that it shows up, caring for others, and it's really similar also to balancing personal life and professional life. And, one example, Cory, it was a Friday afternoon. She was wrapped up for her day. She's like, I got a tea time. I'm like, great. That sounds great. 3:00. I can probably be wrapped up by then.
Oh,
And
let me just pause because it was your idea to get the tea time. Let me just remind
okay.
you.
So I was like, okay, that sounds
I
great.
love it.
We should go. And I should do that for me. And then as I was sitting there, well, a couple things happened. I realized I forgot to take care of myself with proper attire. Some rain was coming and I forgot a little jacket and I knew I would be cold. And then there were some other work projects that's, when you're working in healthcare, at the end of the day, it's all about caring for others. So I called Cory. I'm like, I can't. And it was just this feeling, I can't go. I can't go golf, even though it was my idea. And I really wanted to take care of myself and us, because that's the other piece, is caring for each other. And you've got some podcasts that are that series about one, caring for self, caring for others, and caring for each other. And I think that's part of what Cory and I have done with each other our entire lives, because we help each other check into those spots, and we're the same and we're different. And that's, I think a really interesting dynamic to grow up with an identical twin. People are always thinking you're the same and you're different. We were always trying to really carve out our own paths for ourselves. And yet the universe would bring us to the same thing. We literally called each other on the same day to tell each other we made the decision to go to nursing school. It wasn't something, this was back before I even had a cell phone. So, we would maybe talk once, every 1 to 2 weeks, and we lived in different states, and like, yeah, I'm going to go to nursing school. Really? Me too. And so it wasn't something that we had really explored together, but explored individually. And it was leading us in that path. But yeah, so I canceled, long story short, I canceled my golf date with my sister. And felt a little guilty about that, but I was caring for others. It was a very complex situation to master.
There were multiple polarities at play.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure
I
there
had to get
were.
some work stuff, get it done so I could, enjoy my weekend.
Yeah. Well, and again, right, this is dynamic. And sometimes you're pulled and you have to give attention to the pull, even, and you can't always give 50-50 attention. And you have to just recognize what has to be the priority in the moment and take the actions, but not let go, right? Like, so you did golf eventually, I'm sure.
Yes, I did golf.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Just not that day.
Just not that day. The next day I did.
Yeah. See, there you go. Sometimes you just gotta establish the priority. What's gonna make the biggest difference right now? And then, how can I make time for this leisurely activity at another time in the very, very near future so that I can maintain that other pole, right? It's all about the maintenance.
Well, and I like how, it's not 50-50. Fair isn't equal. Equality and equity are different things. And, we've learned that through, examining disparities in healthcare, that it's not you give everybody exactly the same thing. You give the focus what it needs at the time. And so balancing these areas, and as a mom also, and caring for your kids, and I've got a teenager, and that's new, and I'm learning about that, how to give independence and also be available, because they think they don't need you, but when they need you right now. And some of those are really golden moments that I don't want to miss. I don't want to miss those golden moments as my kids are growing, because I don't get that back. And
no, you don't.
And each day that goes by, I'm reminded as they grow that, oh yeah, that was so yesterday.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, that's so true though. But so the thing is, for people that don't understand this or don't know this, right? They give everything all the time to others. and they don't recognize, right, where they don't have the early warning signs, or they have them, they ignore them. They don't know that this is, a predictable pattern. And where, okay, I can make this choice, and then I can also do something to protect and to honor the other pole, whatever it is, right? If we're talking about self and other, professional life, personal life, that you need to maintain something in that other pole and not just drop it all together. And so you can make some periodic decisions that aren't necessarily, unipolar.
Hmm.
They're a choice, but it's not a unipolar choice, right? You have that awareness, and it makes all the difference when you do.
And having the perspective that when we're needing to focus on one area, that it's not going to be forever. And
Right.
I'll just say this really honestly, with some vulnerability. My marriage was really struggling during that time when I was in my master's program and accelerating my career, just trying to balance all of those things. And there were times when I was like, we're just not going to make it. And if there
Mhm.
was any advice I would have, it was like, if you're in a period of you're really focusing on something very intense and you want to change everything all at once, wait, just wait and get through that time, that period, and then look at things with a different perspective and see where you're at. And I'm really glad that I did that because things
Yeah.
are really great right now in my personal life. So,
Yeah,
and my
yeah,
marriage is healthy and my kids are thriving. And that, it took some work to get there, but yeah, just wait. It's okay to pause.
yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, and then it's also fun even to share polarities at a small, at a micro level with those around you when you're in those situations. Like Tracy and I call it the back of the napkin. Like if you're discovering in your talk, in your conversation, what your
Mm.
tensions are, it doesn't have to be, you have to understand everything. Let's just kind of talk through this, have that dialogue. And it's like, oh, so even those little moments like that, having this wisdom, I have found have been really helpful as well.
Yeah, it just puts the lens to the
Yeah.
situation, right? And I love that you said that, because really that's a stability and change
Yes.
polarity, right?
Yep.
And when we're implementing too much change at once and we don't maintain significant enough stability, 100% guaranteed where you're going to end up
Fail.
with that, right?
Yeah.
So you always have to be thinking about, if I'm going to take on this change, what else is going to remain stable, and will it be as stable enough to sustain me and keep me moving towards that greater purpose, right? That both of these things will give me. And when we change too much, there's not enough. Or sometimes we don't recognize what is stable, right? We just get sucked up in all the change, and our attention is on all the change, and we're not consciously recognizing, wait a minute, there are some things that are stable in my life, right? There are some things that I can hang on to that are anchors for me, because that's what you're looking for, is an anchor in the storm, right? The thing that's going to keep you grounded so that you don't, your boat just doesn't go right off into the sunset, right? So, or capsize because it's too much, right? There's too much turmoil around you. So,
And
Yeah.
stability and change is just such a relevant, oh, it's so big in healthcare. When I started kind of thinking through this lens, I could really appreciate more, having, sat at an enterprise level in my role. We would have these initiatives that we wanted to roll out. We were super excited about them. They were going to change care, they were going to innovate. And you forget in your excitement about this opportunity for this new future that the people that have to implement that change are also getting change from multiple directions. And so, um, I think back to conversations I had around these tensions, 3 or 4 years ago, compared to what the last year has looked like and how it's felt for me. It's a release to be able to go in there and recognize and honor those different perspectives and find that way together, because at the end of the day in healthcare, how fortunate that we are that we have such an important purpose to align our work around.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, thank you, Kelly, for both of you for sharing that. And Kelly, thank you for sharing your personal story, because it's just really it's really powerful. And the polarities are everywhere. We say that all the time. They're everywhere. They're in your professional life, they're in your work life. And you two have something really unique with having that common understanding and that common language, which could really makes a difference as well. And we always say that once you see this intelligence, once you understand it, you can't unsee it. Right? You can't unsee it once you got it, and it really, you can't ignore it. And it really becomes you and how you think and how you see the world and how you really honor those different perspectives and how it is what makes you a thriving leader as well. And Cory, great comment about healthcare right now. And we know it can be sometimes challenging to bring a new competency or a new way of thinking into anything, especially when we think about how complex healthcare is. But with your experience, just what gives you the greatest hope when you even think about having polarity intelligence would be a norm for healthcare leaders and healthcare organizations? What kind of hope does that give you? And Cory, let's start with you.
I think the hope that I have is, when I've been able to enter conversations with this frame myself, people are hungry for a new way of thinking about problems, because what we've applied over and over again keeps us cycling in this cycle of frustration. Hey, we solved that problem and here it is again. And so people are hungry for a different way to approach these really adaptive challenges, which are full of polarities everywhere. And so, you know, I have a lot of hope because it's been a simple tool that I could apply to, these really complex and ambiguous situations, and see a greater purpose for it. And I see, especially in leaders, they're hungry for it. And Kelly mentioned earlier too, when she brings this to people, their eyes open up and they're like, oh wow, there's a different way. And so I'm seeing that a lot. And I that gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Great.
Gives
Great.
me hope too.
Yeah. Kelly, how about you?
Yeah, I think, what Cory said about looking for a different way, because we're really good at solving problems in healthcare. We're really good at it. We have our A3s, and we have our fishbone diagrams, and we do our root cause analysis, and we get at the heart of it, and we execute, and we measure everything. We measure our outcomes, and we're baffled when the problem comes up again. And recruitment and retention, that's my favorite, and you talk about that in your podcast all the time. Favorite of healthcare leaders. And I think it provides an opportunity that there's a third way. There's this other way of thinking about our problems that isn't going to over focus on one to the neglect of the other. And as as you continue to dialogue about this, and it's that hope, it's that lighting up of, oh, this is something I can add this perspective and this intelligence to the problems I'm trying to solve. Because even if it's a pretty directive problem that you want to solve, recognizing that the polarities that might be impacting the path to solve that problem helps you work around that, and helps you, what is really within my influence of control, what's in my span of control, and the focus too of really learning to take care of ourselves in healthcare. And that's a big culture shift, and I think we're really making steps in that direction. At least in our organization, we have a lot of focus on caregiver safety and caregiver well-being, and helping people own their own self-care, and giving people the tools to do that. And I think the call for leadership is to also act in the way that is to walk the walk. And that means carving out my little morning routine, and knowing that period of time between 4:15 and about 6 o'clock, before Cory and I call each other and share podcasts, um, is for me. That's my time
Yeah.
to meditate, read good things. I don't have any other time during the day that's focused on that. It really sets up my routine for thriving. And I've just listened to your episode on leadership hacks, and I was like, yep, that has been a very good hack for me, is setting up that morning
Yeah.
routine.
Do you meditate for 20 hours like I do?
Nobody meditates like Michelle does. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee you that.
I was
Yeah.
listening to that and I was gardening. I was pulling weeds. I was pulling weeds, and you said 20 hours, and here I am sweating, pulling my weeds. Like, boy, would I love to meditate for 20 hours. I was trying to
No
pull
doubt.
weeds before the thunderstorm came to my house. It was a good laugh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they all are. They all are. Oh, geez. Well, thanks so much, really, for sharing that. And you give us hope, right? That
Mhm.
leaders like you are out there, you're listening. You're not just listening and saying, oh, wow, that's interesting. But you're saying, wow, this is something, I'm going to take it. I'm going to run with it. I'm going to make it, I'm going to apply it in my life. And you've just been amazing. You've just been amazing. And so thank you for being here today and sharing with everybody. And we're getting now to the missing questions.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Now, I have had the privilege of being with you ladies
I know.
twice now in Utah. I've just, you live near where my son lives. So I've been making an appointment, a dinner appointment. But and our listeners got to know a little bit more about you on the personal side, but we spent a lot of time talking also about how you're applying this professionally. So the missing questions are really about how they can get to know you, kind of the dynamic twin duo, a little bit more. They're not questions aren't going to be anything that you can't handle, so just relax. And we have 3 of them. I'm going to do 2, and then Michelle's going to close things out with a third. But let's get started. Here's the first one, and Kelly, you can go first this time. So, what do you admire most about Cory as a sister friend?
Everything. No, I admire her commitment to her health. Cory is a tremendous athlete. I mean, not only is she a wonderful, an incredible leader in her professional life, a compassionate person. She's a great listener. Um, but she's just really inspiring. Like I'm like, I'm never going to get to that level that she's able to dedicate to her athleticism. And I just admire it. I try to keep up on the ski slopes. But she keeps me inspired to keep getting after it. And when I'm slacking off on my strength training, she reminds me that as we get closer to 50, it's important for us to keep our muscles strong. So and I think that she cares for herself. It shows, and that is a really inspiring attribute for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. All right, Cory, your turn. What do you admire most about Kelly?
Oh, so much. I I admire how beautifully courageous she is with her voice in her professional life. Um, it's when you talk about diplomacy and candor, that polarity, she leverages that so beautifully, and really elevates others in her ability to deliver uh, candid messages and share her truth. And so professionally, I really admire that. And then, but just in life, I didn't have kids, and I have such, I'm going to get a little teary. Sorry.
It's
I have so
okay.
much admiration for how she shows up for her family and, and balances, the personal professional life. But, I've just watched her walk through some amazing things with her kids and with such grace and courage and beauty. It's just really, it's an honor to be a part of. And I I just really admire that.
Aw.
Well, they're really lucky
Aw.
to have the coolest aunt in the world.
I bet they are.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, question number 2. Let's imagine you each come back in another lifetime and you were not a nurse. What would you be professionally? Cory, you go first.
Well, I have been in the process of reinventing the next 20 years. So I I would come back as a coach because that's what I'm trying to develop myself as a new competency and how I show up as a leader. And, maybe I'd be Ted Lasso. Yeah, I don't know. I love Ted Lasso. And
I
so,
do
Oh, so
too.
do
you know,
we.
Your coaching
Gotta
and
learn a little something about football. That's great. All right, Kelly, your turn.
Well, I have to back up because my kids have two really cool aunts, and so I just want to say that. But Cory's super cool, but we have an older sister who's really awesome too. So, um, what would I come back as? And I think these questions are if I had all the time and all the resources, right? Everything was like lined up and
Sure.
ready. Um, I think I'd be some kind of a storyteller. And I love to tell. I love telling stories. I have, and maybe Cory and I will tell some stories together. Maybe we'll, I don't know. Maybe I'll write in my future. But I used to, before I came into healthcare, I was a vocal performance major. I finished my first go at what do I want to be when I grow up was a singer, and being able to tell stories and impact people and touch people in profound ways was really powerful. And even when I was up on a stage doing that, it was because of how it made other people feel. They felt good. They felt, people felt riveted by the story or by what they were listening to. So, all time and resources and stars aligned, maybe I would have, anchored more into the artistic side of storytelling.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful.
That's great.
That is really
Love
wonderful. Yeah. A coach and a storyteller.
it. Yeah. Coaches and storytellers. Amazing.
Okay. So now it is time for the wrap up question. And you guys know what's coming. We always close our podcast with having people recognize that polarities are interdependent pair of values or points of view that sometimes seem opposite, opposing, conflicting, but they need each other over time. And we do have a preference poll, as we've had several great examples in this interview. So I'm going to share a polarity with you, and I want each of you just to share your preference poll. And the polarity is structure and flexibility.
flexibility. Flexibility.
Flexibility for me too.
All right.
Maybe we're not the polarity twins.
That's one area where we're the same, not different.
That
great.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
That happens.
Yeah, sure.
That absolutely happens.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate structure. Oh boy, do I appreciate it. And those on my team and in my life who have a preference pull for structure, I appreciate them so much, and I need that. support. So I can have a model, so I can build it in, but definitely flexibility.
Yeah, and you need, I mean, both are essential. Both are
Mhm.
essential. And the structures that, we put in place, and especially in healthcare, when you have the right structures in place, it really allows you to flourish and allows your creativity to go. If it's all just, flexible in every which way, you don't get to your greater purpose. But having some of those parameters and the right types of structures in place really can lead to a place where you can be more creative, and the flexibility has direction and focus, and you need both.
Yep.
It's
Yep,
like,
you do.
I was, go ahead,
oh,
Cory.
it's like our morning routine. Like there's a structure, but it doesn't. Sometimes I start with meditation. Sometimes I start with reading. Mostly I start with meditation. Where the call with Kelly happens, that changes. There's some exercise in there, but there's the structure of the time, and then sometimes that flexes with the needs of the day.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Well, I was just thinking about we've interviewed a couple of individuals on improv lately, and even improv has structure,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
right? So it's a both and. It's
It is
always
a
a
both
both
and.
and. I'm a structure gal, so
I'm
I'll
flexible.
work with all three of you.
We need Tracy in
Thanks,
our
because
life.
I need it. It's not
I do
easy for
too.
me.
Happy to help.
And you appreciate it. It's like, oh, there's her structure coming out again.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
Michelle.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, that's what makes the world go
Yeah,
round,
it
right?
does.
Right? You got strengths in different ways and different perspectives, and that's what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's supposed to be. If we were all the same, it'd be awful, right? We got to have the contrast to appreciate the
Yeah.
opposing
Well, boy,
perspectives,
music
right?
is such a great example too, because that flexible creativity. But when I was in music school, it's all about the structures. You're learning the structures, and when you put all these different structures together, you create this beautiful thing. So
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great analogy.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, you guys, we have to have you back again someday.
Oh, we will.
We
I have no
will.
doubt. No doubt.
Thank you
I
so
got to
much.
get more stories written, and then you can have someone published or something. But really, I mean, you have such incredible guests on your show, published leaders, and I'm this humble leader in healthcare, doing the best that I can. I'm really honored that you'd invite Cory and I to participate in your show.
Oh, well,
you're so welcome.
you're very welcome, and we have high regards for both of you, believe me.
Oh, yes.
Very much so.
Yeah, yeah. All right, dynamic
Okay,
duos.
let's put those lenses back on.
All right.
Get our
Okay,
Close
I've
it
got
out.
my missing logic blue.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, changing the world one polarity at a time. Thanks for being here, and thanks to our listeners for tuning in again to this incredible episode with our dear, dear friends, Kelly and Cory. So we'll see you next time. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast, now a top-rated podcast for healthcare leaders. Please share this podcast with other healthcare leaders and anyone else you think would benefit. We are certain that if you found value in it, they will too. If you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. And also, it would mean the world to us if you took a quick moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast player. It helps to get the word out about our podcast and incredible guests. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to watch our podcasts. You can also follow us on our Missing Logic social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Until next time.